Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Along with Jim Garrity of National Review, I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Bad, and kind of good martinis for conservatives today. If Jim and I sound a bit bleary-eyed, it's because Hawaii had a caucus last night, and Idaho was fairly late poll closing. And I think there were hundreds who showed up to actually vote in Hawaii yesterday, Jim. When you look at those vote totals, the turnout, not so good. But anyway, the bad martini that we go to first, of course, is another very good night for Donald Trump. And so that's not good for conservatives who would prefer a different candidate for the Republican nomination. Trump called the winner very early on in Mississippi. He won by double digits there, and for a while it looked like he was flirting with winning all of the 40 delegates in that state. Ultimately, he did not get to that point, so it was proportional between him and Cruz. Trump wins by double digits in Michigan. He wins by double digits in Hawaii. Cruz did win in Idaho. So, Jim, another good delegate haul for Donald Trump. Rubio got shut out, which is good if you're looking to narrow the race. It's bad if you're looking to have people reach the threshold in large numbers so Trump doesn't get as many delegates. By CNN's count, Trump gets about 72 delegates last night, Cruz 57. So, Jim, not only does Trump have a good night, it gives him momentum going into those huge contests next week. Nobody seems to be getting out before then, and it doesn't look like we're going to be much happier a week from now.
I should point out, Greg, that one of the great disappointments of this cycle is that Radio America turned down your request to cover the Hawaii caucuses live. National Review similarly was not willing to cover the expenses to have me out to cover that one, because even I would at least be happy covering that Trump victory. No, Trump is largely rolling 3 out of 4 last night. For those who say, look, you can make the argument, well, he's still got that hard 35% or so ceiling, that there's still about 65% of the party that doesn't like him. Problem is, that 65% is split. And even when Rubio slips down, and he had a really awful night last night, Kasich seems to be picking up. Cruz can point to a bunch of states that he's won, which is the good news, but he's still a good chunk of the delegates behind. And there's really not much indication that the rest of the party is ready to unite behind Cruz. Even folks who you would think would totally be on board with Ted Cruz and his philosophy and his vision and his policy preferences, the Larry Kudlows of the world, the Stephen Moores of the world. Stephen Moore began this cycle advising Scott Walker, and now he's jumped on the Donald Trump bandwagon. It's really kind of terrifying to see when you see evangelical conservatives looking at Donald Trump and saying, yeah, we'll get what we want out of this guy in the face of all kinds of evidence. When you see Catholics lining up behind Donald Trump, then, of course, the business folks will. Then, of course, the legal conservative community will. Veterans. I mean, you name every faction of the Republican Party is going to demonstrate itself more or less equally capable of making their peace with Donald Trump. At this point, there's very little sign about the party is going to unite behind Cruz. And Rubio and Kasich are in even worse shape behind them. We'll talk a little more about that in the second martini. There's been this sinking feeling about Trump being the nominee, and last night really kind of solidified it. What solidified not just that Trump was ahead, I think last night really made clear that there's no indication people are going to unite behind any other option.
It certainly doesn't look that way. And if you look at conservative Twitter over the past 24 hours, there is no healing going on there, especially between the Cruz and Rubio camps. Part of it in relation to the story that we talked about yesterday, but just frustration in general boiling over. And also to point out, Donald Trump is winning everywhere in this country, not just a lot of states. He's sweeping the Deep South. He won in the industrial Midwest, obviously. He's won in the Northeast for the most part. And so there doesn't seem to be a weak spot for him other than that little strip going north from Texas to Oklahoma to Kansas. But there's not a ton of delegates going further north from there. And so as you mentioned, Jim, it would appear that when you look at the delegate count, it's 461. This is the CNN count. 461 for Trump, 360 for Cruz, 154 for Rubio, 54 for Kasich. It would seem pretty simple that if you want to unify, and as you mentioned, it's not looking real optimistic in that direction, that there would be a natural choice if you don't like Trump, and that would be Cruz at this point, just based on the numbers. But oh no. If the number 3 guy, Rubio, seems to be fading, it's obvious that we have to go with the number 4 guy. So this is from the Cleveland Plain Dealer today. You linked to it in the Morning Jolt. They cite the new poll from NBC going forward that Trump's at 30, Cruz is at 27, Kasich's at 22, Rubio's at 20. So Kasich's now in third. This is great. Kasich survives Michigan. The Ohio governor went from hoping to win Michigan to polling last in Michigan to fighting a close race with Cruz for second place there, which he didn't win. It qualifies as a comeback given the rough month Kasich has had since New Hampshire, and it gives him a confidence boost heading into next week's Ohio primary. Third place in his state. He said once in New Hampshire that he had to win is now a confidence boost. So I think, Jim, he gets today's John Huntsman Award.
I'd say third place is a ticket to ride, ladies and gentlemen.
You talk about other candidates massaging the expectations game. Everybody thinking this is somehow Big Mo for Kasich is amazing.
Yeah, I'm marveling at this, and a lot of folks have said accurately, Marco Rubio had a really bad night last night. Came out with 0 delegates. That is, he's on life support. Use whatever metaphor you want. Florida is do or die. What I don't get this morning is you're starting to see something. Well, it's time for the establishment to unite behind Kasich. So to clarify, the guy who's running a disappointed third has to get out. So the guy who's in a distant fourth gets. Let's all get behind that guy who's got about 6% of the votes in the primary so far. It's a just bizarre mentality here. And what I keep getting is, one, from the very beginning, it was very clear that, Kasich, he wasn't going to bother in Iowa, even though allegedly he's the Midwestern candidate, and Iowa strikes me as, more or less the Midwest. But all right, no, we're not going to do that one. Okay, fine. So he goes into New Hampshire, does well in New Hampshire, emulates John Huntsman, as you put it. He's not going to bother in South Carolina. He decides, okay, I'm going to campaign in Michigan, and he's not going to bother in all these other states. So basically he's saying, I am running for president of the Midwest. I'm not really running, I'm a boutique candidate. I only work in certain areas. And as you go down the list, that you'd think, Michigan would have to be one of his best states, like Ohio, maybe Pennsylvania, and then Michigan. He's an Ohio State guy. Maybe it was always going to be a tough sell to Michigan Wolverines, but he came in third place. Now, not a heck of a lot behind Ted Cruz, but still, if this was supposed to be one of his good states. And then you look at the other, Midwestern, he was, 6% in Minnesota, way behind there. He lost to the Cuban-American guy from Miami in Minnesota. He was fourth in Kansas, right? He is a regional candidate who can't win in his own region. So where can he win? And so why? I guess the idea is, well, I got Ohio, and Ohio is so important to the overall electoral college that you have no choice but to put me on the ticket. But this all kind of presumes he's going to win Ohio, and it's I don't think that's a ironclad lock right now. So just kind of a baffling amount of spin. 6 counties out of the several hundred that have gone so far. It's just a bizarre phenomenon that basically the perception of whether you're winning has very little to do with whether or not you're actually winning. If you wanted a non-Trump alternative, you need to unite behind them. I'm seeing across my Twitter feed right now, Greg, that Carly Fiorina is endorsing Ted Cruz. Maybe that'll get some momentum, but right now, it looks like the rest of the party is just sufficiently evenly split amongst those other 3 options to give Trump the nomination.
Jim, is there such a thing as establishment unification fatigue? Because how many candidates have they been asked to rally around? There was Jeb, there was Christie, there's Rubio, there's Kasich. I'm probably missing somebody in there.
Maybe we'll unify behind this one. Okay, then maybe this one. Okay, how about this one? Yeah, it's not happening, guys.
Right now, Pataki's saying, "Oh man, if I only stayed in long enough, I could have been rallied around."
Gilmentum.
All right, on to the good/crazy Martini. It's been fascinating, Jim, especially to watch in the Republican primaries how second, third, fourth, no matter how distant you are from the front runner, you can kind of spin that into, well, we rebounded, we did better than expected, this is our springboard to the next thing. All these speeches that we saw in the early states that made us roll our eyes. And then you've got Bernie Sanders, who was so sure he was going to lose. He didn't even bother to have a rally last night for Mississippi and Michigan. He got absolutely annihilated in Mississippi. But in a huge shock, Hillary Clinton loses Michigan, even though she was ahead by double digits in every single poll there. In the end, Sanders wins by a couple points. It's proportional delegate allotment, so it's basically an even split there. But it's a huge momentum shift for him. I'm sure it'll bring in more money. and it'll bring about a very unpleasant narrative for Hillary Clinton for at least the next week, if not longer. And so Bernie Sanders is getting it done in a place that nobody expected him to. More people feeling the burn, and this could mean that Hillary Clinton has to spend a lot more time locking this up, not so much with the way she's got the superdelegates going, but in terms of convincing the party that this is over and that she's one that everyone needs to get behind. That's hit a major stumbling block here.
I'm looking at his totals. He's got about 39.5% of all the votes cast so far. You look at where he's standing on national polls, he's right around that 40 point. He's won about 8 states right now. Now, he's getting throttled in the delegate fight, 707 to 45. But ultimately, this is a guy who, was not expected to do very much, was kind of set up as the only alternative to Hillary. And lo and behold, there's a good 40% of Democrats who want an alternative to Hillary. He's not going to get the nomination, but he's going to have a really solid chunk of the party behind him. And I wrote a piece yesterday, and I kind of feel like there's, maybe we need to have a bit more open discussion about this, that ultimately, if we're not a multi-party country now, Greg, that we are becoming, each one of the parties are having a bigger factions within them that have less and less in common. If you talk to your average Bernie Sanders voter, they actually don't think Hillary Clinton's going to do very much for them. They'll probably fall in line come November, or at least most of them will. But look, the Bernie Sanders folks want a political revolution. They want free college tuition. They want Medicare for everyone. They want subsidized childcare. They want expanded Social Security. They want tax rates going up above 50%. Hillary Clinton's not going to give them very much of that. Hillary Clinton is the status quo. And there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party who are very upset with the status quo. So, yes, the entire Republican Party has turned into a dumpster fire. But you do have, there is this giant division on the Democratic side that the media is going to pay a little less attention to because it's uncomfortable for them. They want to see Democrats win. They think of the Democrats as the good guys. It's like watching a family fight. But interestingly, I think the most likely scenario is that whoever wins on Election Day 2016, whether it's, Hillary, the extremely less likely Sanders, if it's Trump, if it's Cruz, if it's Rubio, and it's looking like Trump is more likely to be the Republican nominee, you're going to have more than half of Americans very upset with the choice. We are setting ourselves up to have the least popular, least supported, and president with the least mandate in recent memory. That's kind of an ominous outlook for things beyond 2016. So anyway, happy Wednesday, everybody. Weather's nice.
What does it say about us that the silver lining is that we can take some pleasure in Hillary Clinton's misfortune? Party's not doing well.
Take pleasure where it comes, Greg.
On that note, yes, enjoy the weather. Jim, talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today, and please join us again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.